Welcome back everyone to another episode of Mortla Realms Monday. I am JD, aka the Rogue Painter, and today we are going to be taking a look at issue 5's Briar Queen Thorns, more specifically the Briar Queen. For the colour scheme for this, we're going to be doing a green-yellow spectral theme with some pink for the headdress and the corset, and we will be doing the whole model including the base. So the corset and headdress there will be pink, and then we'll do pale arms and obviously some very pale greens and pink roses to tie everything in with the hair and that. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we want to do is get the main colour for her ghostly parts down. So for that we're going to use some Ethermatic Blue contrast paint mixed with some Flash Gits Yellow. So first things first is give your pots a shake. Always make sure to shake those pots up and get a load of that blue onto our palette. We are going to want quite a bit of this on here. It will get used up very quick. Obviously, if you're using dropper bottles and you've moved your paints into dropper bottles, it's probably much easier to do. But here we are. Rinse the brush off, make sure there's no colour in there. Last thing we want to do is get some blue in our yellow. Right, we're just going to place this yellow here. We don't want to mix it directly in. And there you go, we had some blue in there. So take the yellow and we're just going to mix up a small area of it. A little bit more yellow. Seems my paint had dried out a little bit in the pot. So you've got a couple of little thick bits there. So you want something like that, but we do want it to run a bit. So as we put paint in there, that has thickened that contrast paint up a tad, so we're just going to thin it back down. Now you could do this if you have contrast medium, you could mix that in instead of the water here, but because there's already contrast medium in there, the water isn't going to do any harm. Right, now all we're going to do is just paint this down straight onto our model. Obviously I have primed this in grey. If you primed it in white you'll get a slightly different effect, but we're going to do a few coats of this so it doesn't matter too much as long as we get a good couple of even coats down. Now because of this particular the way we're going to do this, I won't skip this section of video. We will go through this together to make sure that we get the right effect. All I'll do is skip when it comes to waiting for this to dry. So just get it on nice and even, don't have to be too careful with it. And then same for the cloak. Don't worry about going over the thorns here. We will put some paint on that anyway. We're going to touch that up, so that will be fine. Make sure to get over her shoulder and down the front. Right, so now we're just going to add some more yellow to this and get it thinned down a bit more, or yellowed down a little bit more, get it looking paler. And whilst that's still wet on the miniature, we're going to go ahead and paint that straight over the top on the lower parts. And as the paint is thin and that contrast medium stops it from drying too quick, you should be able to get a relatively nice blend. And we can go in again, a bit more yellow. And just do the bottom portion of this. And then we can just gently blend that up and down, going backwards and forwards, and then down just to try and get rid of some of those brush strokes. Don't worry about the harsh line there, we will fix that. All we've got to do is just go back into that mid-green and just blend back up. Alright, and then we'll leave that there to dry and we'll come back in a few minutes. Okay, so now that's had time to dry, we're going to do another layer of Aethematic blue contrast. This time we're going to go straight from the pot and we're just going to run it into the recesses and along the top area. So just up here and down into some of these recesses. So we're going to be a little bit more deliberate with where we put this. Use it a little bit more as of a wash, but it is going to tint some of those areas. Just pull it down, make sure that so it doesn't dry too much. We do want to pull that up towards the top here. So off the shoulder. And the same on this side. And then the same underneath. Just bring it down to about halfway down the miniature. And then with a slightly damp brush, just go back up and just feather some of that down. And just sort of smooth it out a little bit. It's okay on the top there. Again, slightly damp brush, dip it in your water and then dab it on a paper towel quickly just to take off some of the excess. If you find your paint has dried, don't worry, you can just touch back in to the pot and then blend it. Damp, dab, and then feather out again. You don't want it to set too much in the recesses, not just yet. So round the back here. And back under here. You may have to tilt the model back up slightly just so that it doesn't run down to the base too much, and we don't want it running anywhere where it's supposed to be getting yellower. So again, damp brush, just make sure that we are pulling up off of some of these highlight areas. Alright, and again, let that dry and then we can come back into it one more time. So I will catch you in a second. Right, and once that's dry, we'll just go over one more time. Just picking up this top end here. Just to darken it up just a slight bit more. So you know what's happened is we've got automatic highlights from having the greener shade underneath, and the tint can only do so much on the surface or on the highlight high areas. So as it blends or runs down into them recesses, the higher areas become highlighted. So again, to blend it in, damp brush and just feather that up and down, pulling it out. that's the darkened portion done. Pull some of that out, get it back up the top there, and we'll just hold that there to dry whilst we wait, and we'll be back in a sec. Okay, so once that's had time to dry, we're just going to take some more of our Flash Gits yellow here and mix that in with just a small amount of the green. We want to try and get this fairly yellow but with a slight tint to it. You don't want it too strong, just enough to stand out against what we've already done. We don't need to thin this down too much, as we're just going to use this to highlight the robe areas that we've just done. So all we're going to do with this is just edge highlight some of these areas down here of the robe, the tattered pieces. And pull a little bit up off the bottom, around obviously the edge of the holes here. So I'm just using the side of the brush just to pick off some of these edges. And the same with the underside here. Just go along the tops of anywhere that the light, I would say, would catch, but as they are ethereal or ethereal, it wouldn't catch too much. And then just pick off the top peaks and the raised edges of some of the cloak up here. And along this bit. Right, so there we go. That's the green ethereal done. Next, we're going to take some pink hover, and we're just going to give a quick coat to the corset. So I'm going to thin this down slightly. And just go over the corset with this. It may take a couple of coats, so we'll get this on and then we'll jump back. Okay, so now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and do the same with the head dress. I'm not sure exactly what this part is called, but this area we're going to do pink as well. So if you want to go and get a nice clean finish to this, and we'll be back shortly. Right, so once that's done, we're now going to take some white scar, apply this to our palette. Get that down next to the pink there. And then we're going to take some of this and mix it in with that pink. There we go. And now we're just going to take this and pick off the majority of the headdress, just leaving the deepest recesses in the pink. If you stop just short of the band at the top there as well, that will give it a bit more depth. If you want to go ahead and do a couple of layers of this, and I will catch you guys in a bit. Alright, then if you want to take a little bit more white and add this, and now we're looking for a very sort of almost white with a tint of pink, and then we're going to thin it down just slightly, and again we're going to go just over our highest points and pick off some of those raised edges, just like so. At the top of the head, just do a small half circle type thing on one side, make sure to pick the bottom edges of some of these points here. And then on the corset, we'll just pick some slight edges just for some final highlights. There we go. Alright, now while we're waiting to do some of the top, we'll get the base done, so then we can move back towards the top. So first of all, we're going to take some Mortla brown. Thin it down a bit, and then we're going to slap that all over the base along this bottom edge here, just shy of where you've got some of that stonework there. So if you want to go ahead and do that, and we'll jump back in just a minute. Right, next if you want to take some Eshin grey, and we'll use this for the slabs. So again, thin that down slightly and go ahead and paint these slabs here. Obviously try not to go over the green and yellow that we've already done. If you want, or if you can, if you haven't glued the miniature in, you can remove her from the base to do this if you wish. Otherwise just be very careful. This will take a couple of coats to get over. Don't worry about if you go over the dirt that's on the stones. You can go back over that with the Mortla brown again in a second. So I'll get on with this. I'll leave you guys to yours, and we'll catch up in a bit. Alright, once you've got your grey down, you can go back in and finish with that Mortla brown. Just going over these areas of dirt that are on the path here. Don't worry about if you go onto the path a little bit. Our highlights will pick up the dirt, and it will just make the anything on the path look more like wet dirt that's run down. Right, so now we'll take some Xandri dust and just go over the skull and bones at the bottom there. Right, so now that that's done, we can move on to doing the skin of the Briar Queen. Although actually, whilst we have some of that Mornfang brown out, we'll do the scabbard of her dagger here. So we'll give this a nice brown leather look. Right, so next we'll take some Kislev flesh and some pallid witch flesh, and we're going to mix these up into a 50-50 ratio for the first layer. And we'll just go over all the skin areas, so her hands, arms and face. So we'll just do this, get a couple of coats on there, and we'll be back in a bit. Right, once we've got that done, we're going to take some Cabalite green. And some white scar. I'm just going to mix that in to get this pale looking green. You even go with a little bit of the yellow. There we go. Sort of a mintish, pale mint green. And then for this, we're going to go over these thorns. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and water down some of this green. I'm going over the yellow here, but that is dry, so I don't think that I am mixing that in or anything. So just get your green nice and thin down here. There you go, you can see it's wanting to recede on the paper. And then we're just going to give that a wash over everything we just did. Right, and then we have add a little bit more of the green to it, and again just wash some of this up to about halfway. And then just a little bit more green. So what we're doing is essentially thickening this up slightly, just so that it clings to more of the bramble than the previous layer, and that essentially darkens it up as there is more pigment there. Right, and then the same with the base with that thicker pigment. We'll just go over a few times, letting it dry between each layer until we get this up to a nicer green. So if you want to go ahead and do that, and I'll catch you guys in a second. Right, so now we'll take some of the pallid witch flesh and a small amount of the mix that we did, and we're just going to thin that down again just so the pallid witch flesh is slightly tinted. And then we're just going to go across the top of the arms, just pick out some of the highlight points, leave the underside of the arm, and we'll just pick up the fingers and some of the hand. The same with this arm, just along the top, pick up some of the muscles, areas in the hand, and then with the face the same thing, just a light brushing over the top, just pick out the most raised areas. Right, so now we're going to get some more of that pink. White it slightly, and then we're going to go ahead and paint up these roses, get it to a slightly lighter pink so that we can put a wash in there. So go ahead and get this into all the roses, and we'll be back in just a second. Alright, so once you've got them done, next up we're just going to pick up some of this Carbolite green, and we're just going to go ahead and pick off the leaves that surround the roses here and along the thorny branch. So if you want to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here in a bit. Right, so now we'll mix a small amount of the yellow into that green just to get a slightly lighter tone without having to go into a new pot of paint or another pot of paint. And now we're just going to pick off these leaves, a bit more yellow. We're just going to highlight some of the edges of these leaves slightly. Just pick them off a few at a time. Randomly, they don't all need highlights. Right, so next up we are going to take some Retributor armour, and this is going to be for the gold pieces that she has. So we'll put some of this on our palette. Should be enough, she doesn't have a lot on there. Right, so starting with the crown, we'll take a small amount of this on our brush. You don't want to blob it up. We're just going to paint the crown, trying to pick off the high points and the details, and then also the handle of the dagger here and this section and the bottom of this, and then the same with the corset. We're going to pick off some of these swirls and some of the finer detailing. If you don't want to do that, you can leave it out. It is very fiddly in there. What we can do, if you want, is pick off an edge here, and just have this edge done in gold as well as the one above it. So if you guys want to go ahead and do that, the crown and the dagger, and I will catch you back in a second. Okay, so once you've got the gold done in these areas, we're just going to take some white, mix it in with that pink again, and now we're going to just give this a gentle surface brush just to pick off some of those highlights. Now this isn't quite a dry brush. We don't mind the pink or the light pink running into some areas, as we are going to be putting a wash in this. Don't forget the ones on the ground, on the base, and the one on her back here. And then we can go in and just highlight some of the back of the rose petals around here. Right, so essentially we are done for a basic job, obviously with a bit more detail on there. So you could leave it like that if you wanted to. That is pretty much battle ready. But we are now going to take some Agrax Earthshade. And you'll have to excuse my lid, it did come with a deformed lid that doesn't stay clamped onto the pot. Now we're just going to take this Earthshade and give a generous amount of it all over the base. Obviously avoiding the vine bush there, the thorns. Make sure I'm on camera. So get it down into them recesses. Into the cracks. Over the skull and bones. We can dot it into her eyes slightly and her mouth. And then if you want, we'll go over the gold on the handle of the dagger and carefully over the gold on her crown, but just the front part. Alright, so that's those areas. Then we're going to take a shade of Carroburg Crimson, and this is going to go in all of the pink areas. So we'll start with the corset and we'll just get that a wash in there, and then just draw some of that back out. We'll paint that over the headdress here. And I've just realised I've missed the ends of the headdress. They will also be gold, so if you want to do them, unless you caught them. And then over all of the roses, we're going to drop this crimson in. All we want to do is sort of blob it in and then draw it back out with the brush, so that we've not got a huge pool of ink in there. Otherwise it will take forever to dry. So the same with the corset. If you find you've put too much on, just go back in and draw it back out. And again, don't forget the ones on the base and the back of these ones. Obviously be careful if your earth shade is still wet. You don't want to pick that up with the brush and end up with a brown red, so just be aware of that. If you want, you can wait until the agrax is fully dry. Right, so slightly damp brush, just go in and draw out some excess if need be. Now, as you can see, although my camera's picking that up as a very bright red, I'll put some photos up at the end so you can see the difference. But that's given it a very sort of dark pink leathery look. I will aim to get, or I do aim to get a better camera, guys. As soon as I can afford one, I'll do that. But there we are, it's almost there. So we'll just let all that wash dry, the agrax earth shade and the red that we've done, the crimson, and we'll be back in a few minutes. See you in a bit, guys. Right, next we're going to take some of this Kislev flesh and pallid witch flesh mix. I'm going to use this just to highlight parts of the bone, the skull and bones down here. So just pick off the edges, obviously the length of the bone here. The ridges of the brow, and do part of the skull. Right, next we're going to take some dawnstone. And we're going to take this Eshin grey that we have here, mix them in about 50-50. Take our dry brush and just pull back over the stones here. Right, and then the same thing, but just with the dawnstone, and just dry brush some of the edges, try and pick off the edges of the stone. There we go, just around there. Come over the crack slightly. This will give a sort of mottled look to the stone. Just gonna pick up where I missed some of the brown here. Alright, we'll take this brown, the Mortla brown, mix that in with some of this flesh and, well, the two flesh tones, just to get us a lighter brown. And then all we're going to do is just gently sort of touch down the dagger, just tap in, just to give it a broken highlight. You don't want to push too hard, you just want to barely touch the miniature. Just to give it a bit of a worn leather look. And then just a small amount around the back, because obviously that would be in shadow. Alright, so all that's left to do now is paint the rim of the base with either the Mortla brown or the Eshin grey to match up with the tiles. That is entirely up to you. Aside from that, she is all done. So here is a completed photo of the completed model. I'd just like to thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, then remember to hit that like button, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could hit that subscribe button too, so that I can grow my channel, grow my subscriptions. And I've got some links down in the description below for Twitch, for which I stream Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Friday evenings 8 PM UK time. If you'd like to follow me over there, I've got a Discord down in the bottom if you'd like to throw photos of your work up on there, as well as Twitter and Instagram links that you can also follow me. So thanks a lot guys, and I will catch you next time.